Yes, uh, 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 we were doing some of the definitions uh, which were proposed by earlier acharyas of Vaisheshik darshan, Vaisheshik thought, Mimamsa, or the Buddhist Dignaga, or Nyaya, Mimamsa, Vaisheshik and Buddhist Dignaga. These were the definitions which were prevalent perhaps at the time of Yuktidipika, because these are the only ones which it thinks as representative, of the respective schools. That these definitions within the same schools went revision is a different fact. About Yuktidipika, the author of Yuktidipika can't help. He can only take note of what existed at the time he was writing his work. So he took note of them and criticized them and distinguished his own position from that of the other acharyas. That we did yesterday. I hope that was clear to most of you, if not to all of you. If there are any queries about those definitions, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, etc., please raise your hand. Otherwise, I pass on to Sankhya's own more comprehensive definition of pratyaksha. Please. Are there any queries about what we did yesterday? Any questions? Any objections? Okay, then I move ahead. Now Sankhyakarika says, and then Yuktidipika comments. We will do it together. He says, Prati Vishayadhyavasayo Dhrishta. Prati Vishayadhyavasayo Dhrishta. Yes, Kārikā 6th. 5th or 6th? Yes, Kārikā. It's okay, Kārikā 5th. Because there's something defective about this book. Because the Kārikā should be mentioned as in this, separately. I have mentioned in my edition in bold letters, right? Every path of the Kārikās or the complete Kārikā, wherever it is given, in bold letters, so that the reader is able to distinguish the Kārikā from the commentary Yuktidīpika. So he says, Prati Vishayadhyavasayo Drishtam. And then there is Drishtam Trividham Anumanam Akshatam Tallinga Lingi Purvakam Aptashruti Aptavachananto. Now, as you will notice, Trividham Anumanam Akshatam we have not done yet, though we have done Anumana, and we have explained the expression, the phrase Tallinga Lingi Purvakam. Linga is Dhuma and Lingi is Agni. On the basis of our perception of dhuma or smoke, we infer the existence of Agni, fire, which we can't see, but we infer, and which therefore exists. We presume to exist, and our presumption is valid, right? Our presumption is valid, because if we have perceived smoke correctly, if indeed we have perceived smoke as smoke, and then if we remember the relation of universal concomitance, what is otherwise called vyapti or sahacharya niyam, right, between linga and lingi, or sadhya or sadhaka, then we are able to correctly infer on the basis of our perception of smoke on the hill, for example, that there is also fire on the same hill at the same time. It can't be that there is smoke in the morning and we say, oh, there was smoke in the morning on the hill. There must be fire in the evening too on the hill. So the spatial and temporal dimensions, aspects of linga-lingi sambandha are important. Right? Though Nyaya Vaisheshik often refers only to the spatial aspect. Parvato Vanniman. It doesn't talk Parvato Vanniman Asmin Kale. That should be understood. That should be understood. Right? If I say Parvato Vanniman Dhumatvat, it is understood that the mountain or the hilltop has smoke at this moment, right? Is understood, though it is not explicitly stated, sometimes at least. So that we had done. What we only need to do now, after we have done Pratyaksha, that Anuman is of three sorts. Aptashruti, Aptavachanam too, we have already done, and I think at sufficient length. Right? So we will not take it up again. So now, Prativishayadhyavasayo drishta. He says, Vishanvantiti Vishaya Shabdadaya. Shabdadaya. Shabda, see again, Shabdadaya, Shabda Tanmatra, etc. Shabdadaya. Shabda Sparsha Rupa Rasna. These are the three objects. All the objects which are knowable or which we know through the sense organs are covered, are encompassed under these three objects, Shabda, Sparsha, Roop, Ras and Gandh. Is that clear? On this, almost everybody is agreed. So he says, Vishanvantiti Vishaya Shabdadaya. Vishay is called Vishay because it fetters, it ties, it attracts. It attracts. Vishanvantiti, even Vishanvantiti, Akarsantiti Vishaya. Akarsayantiti Vishaya. They attract us. See a child sometimes. See a child. He is attracted by any number of things. He finds them novel, he finds them unusual, he wants to see them, sometimes he wants to touch them, sometimes he wants to push them. Why? They are attractive. And because they attract us, because they have roop, firstly we perceive them. That is why sometimes visual perception gets a preeminence over other sorts of perception, though that should not be the case, because tactile perception is equally important. But first of all, child, though of course there is tactile perception when a child is fed by his mother, there is tactile perception, right? He or she touches the body of her mother, right? And there's a very peculiar warmth a child gets out of her mother's bodies, right? So tactile perception is also there, that we can't deny. The child can't use the language, oh, my mother's beauty, my mother's body is beautiful. I so much like it. Child doesn't say it, but his actions show that he so much likes it. Right? So, Vishanvantiti Vishaya Shabdalaya. that is, which tie, which attract us. Shabdadaya, Shabda, etc. They are attract us. Athva vishayante upalabdhante iti artha. Or the second meaning of Vishaya is Vishayante upalabdhante, that they are known, upalabdhi, in the sense of knowledge. As Nyaya Sutra says, I told you yesterday, buddhi upalabdhi jnanam ittanarthantaram. This is the Nyaya Sutra, that buddhi upalabdhi, the expression that is used in Yuktidipika also, what existed at the time of Nyaya Sutras, buddhi, upalabdhi and jnanam, they are synonyms. They are interchangeable. Right? So is that clear? So Vishay is that something which is apprehended, which is cognized, which is known, Vishanvanta. And which is known, what is known is an object of my knowledge. If I know you, you are an object of my knowledge. Right? And the first thing that I notice about anything that has a tangible appearance is its form, is its shape. Right? If I meet you and recognize you, it is on the basis of my memory, my recollection of your facial appearance, isn't it? And when we have known a person enough, then we can recognize him or her even from behind, from his or her gait. उसकी चाल से पता चल जाता है, अच्छा वो आदमी जा रहा है. Because we are familiar now more, now less with his or her physical appearance, even her gait, even her chal, pata chal jata. Oh, that man is good. Swami, it must be Swami Advayananji, because this is how he walks, right? So, even though we have not seen his face, does that happen or not? Tell me. Does that happen or not? Tell me. Yes. And then says techa dvivitha. Now he says Vishayas are of two kinds. Dvivitha. Vishishta avishishtascha. These things, some of these things I'll be doing rather quickly because I have already dwelt upon them somewhat. He says two kinds of objects are there. Vishishta, avishishtascha. Vishishta prathivyadi lakshana asmadadi gamya. Vishishta are those objects like earth, water, etc., which are known by us. Asmadadi gamya. Right? Which are known by us. They are called Vishishtas. Why they are called? Because they are particularized. They are particularized. They are different from Tanumatras. For example, as I was telling you, if we hear a drum sound, it's a particular sound. If I hear a harmonium sound, it's a particular sound. So we call it Vishishta, a special kind of sound. Right? Special kind of. So we call them Vishishtas. Vishishta, particular, particularized. Like humanity is particularized in all individuals who are human beings. I am a particular human being. You are a particular human being. He is a particular human being. But humanity is a generic concept. If we are familiar with that concept, wherever we go, London, Washington, Hanoi, wherever, we recognize, however different those men and women they meet, we recognize them. We know them as men and women, though we have never met them earlier. Isn't it? We know them men and women. So we are particular human beings. So like this, Shabda, Tanamatra is Avishishta. But a particular sign, a particular kind of sound is Vishishta Shabda. So he says, Vishishta Prathivyadi Lakshana Aspadadi Gamya. First of all, Mahabhutas, Prathivyadi, Prithvi, Jal, Tej, Vayu, Akash, Jal. Don't we know Vayu? We feel Vayu. Hot wind is blowing. Hot wind is blowing. We feel it. We can't define it, as I've already said. We can't define heat. If I ask you, please define heat, sir, I can show you what it means to feel heat, isn't it? But I can't define heat. Can you define red? What is red like? Can you define blue? You can't define blue. You can tell me, I will show you a thing which is blue, and then you will know that this is blue. Like you start when you start raising your children and you tell them, he distinguishes between the different shades, the child. Only he doesn't know the name for them. And you, as parents, right, supply him the name, provide him the names. See, this is blue and this is red. He already knows the distinction. That blue is different, that this shade is different from blue. Because some shade attracts him and some other shade doesn't attract him. It happens with every child who doesn't know language, whose perception is there, as I tried to emphasize yesterday. But it has not acquired a verbal form. And it need not acquire a verbal form in order to be called perception. But it can acquire verbal form in order to be communicated, for purposes of communication. Right? Have you ever seen a white man? I can ask someone. No, I haven't seen. I've never been out of India. And white men are normally out of India. I've never seen. Right? So like that. Vishishta, Avishishta cha, Vishishta, Prathivyadi Lakshana, Aspadadi Gamya. Avishishta cha, Tanamatra Lakshana. Yoginam Urdha Srota Samcha Gamya. And the Avishishtas. Avishishtas are those which are like Tanamatra Lakshana, which have the character of Tanmatras. Tanmatra, as I tried to explicate earlier. Tanmatra, Shabda Tanmatra, Sparsha Tanmatra. Not the particular Shabda, but the generic character called Shabda. Sound itself. Sound, just sound. Tanmatra, just sound. Only sound. Only form. What is form? We see particular forms and say there are forms. Yoginam urdhva srotasam cha gamya. This is clear. They are apprehensible to yogis. Yogis can see tanmatras, though they are subtle. They can't see prakriti, but they can see tanmatras. Why can they see tanmatras and not prakriti? Can be a big question. If tanmatras are also subtle, as they are translated in English, so why can they be known to yogis at least, or urdhva srotasam, or the brahmacharis, or the celibates, right? But not prakriti or pradhana. Please tell me, what's the answer? Huh? Is a manifest form. Very intelligent answer. It's a vyakta form. And whatever is vyakta is apprehensible, is knowable. Prakriti is also knowable, but not pratyakshagamya. It is not knowable perceptually. It can't be perceived. As I said yesterday, Yuktidipika says, even Bhagavan Maharshi Kapil, who is the originator of the Sāṅkhya Shastra, can't see Prakriti. It is the subtlest of the subtle. It can, of course, we can infer it, and the Kārikā would come soon, where the Kārikā tells us how we come to know that there is a reality called Prakriti. Now we come to an interesting thing. He says, Prati Vishayadhyavasayo. Vishay he has defined or described. He says, Prati Vishayadhyavasayo. Vishayam Vishayam Prativartate. Tadrishtam, Tadpratyaksham. In the Kārikā, Vishay word is used only once. But the commentary says Vishayam Vishayam, which means there are many objects, right? Many objects. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasgandha. Therefore, Vishayam Vishayam Prati Vartate. Vartate, Prati Vartate. Prati, towards, in front, or proximity. Proximity. Proximity, Sanidhya, Prativartati, which are in contact with, Vartate, which are in contact with, Prati, towards or with, which are in contact with, which remain in contact. Vartate normally, literally mean which remain in contact with, which come into contact with so many objects. Right? Vishayam Vishayam Prati Vartate. Now, you will say there is no such thing as Indriyartha Sannikarša. So Yuktidipika will say, where is the need for that? When we have said, Vishayam Vishayam Prati. Theek hai na? Prati, towards, in contact with. You can be in contact with, in direct contact with something only if something is in front of you. You can't be in direct contact with something which is invisible. Which is invisible. Invisible literally. Invisible means which can't be felt even. Which even can't be felt. You can't be in direct contact with the fire which you infer on the basis of your perception, on the basis of your perception of smoke. You are not in direct contact with that fire. You are not prati that Agni, but you are prati that Dhum. Dhum you perceive, and Anuman. So, it's like that. Vishayam Vishayam Prativartate. Iti Prativishayam. And then he says, now Yuktidipika explains. Yuktidipika thinks it devolves upon itself, it depends upon the commentator, the author of the Yuktidipika, to explain what is that which comes into contact with the objects. Kintat, what is that? Indriyam. So when the sense organs come into contact with the respective objects, you understand the word respective? Visual organ with form, root, etc. so and so forth, with respective objects, then there arises adhyavasaya, prativishayadhyavasayo. Prativishayadhyavasayo, the compound is to be taken as meaning in the wake of, on the occasion of, in the wake of, us avsar par, when there is a direct contact between sense organ and an object. On that occasion, there arises an adhyavasaya, an awareness, which is of an assertive type, which is of an affirmative type, adhyavasaya. I've already explained it. Right? Prativishaya. So, sa prativishayadhyavasaya. Right? Now he explains, and these 3-4 lines are very, very important, which I'm going to do now. Upatta Vishayanam Indriyanam. Again the word upatta occurs. I have explained it. I will not explain it again now. Upatta Vishayanam Indriyanam Vritti Upanipati Satvodrekat Arajastamaskam Yat Prakasha Rupam Tadrishtam Itijavat Tadrishtam Pratyaksham Ityat. Try to follow it. I should explain it like this. Suppose I see a tree. This seeing means that my eyes get into contact with the object which we call tree in English, or vriksha in Sanskrit, or padap in Sanskrit. What happens? In this perception, in which contact takes place, the tree as it appears, makes an impression upon me, produces in me a certain image of itself. Is that true? Produces in me a certain image of itself, of its trunk, if I see it, of its branches, if I happen to see them too, or its leaves, if I see to happen them too, or its particular color, Because even though most trees are green, their greenness differs. The sort of greenness they have differ from tree to tree. Right? So, what happens is, when I see a tree, it creates in my mind an image, an impression. An impression of what? Not of myself, but of itself. You should say that the tree must be an agent. It becomes an agent cause in a way, though it's not the primary agent. The primary agent is, of course, the knower, the self, or the body, as the Charvakas believe. I would not argue here, on that point. I would not enter into details of that problem here. But just for the sake of argument, that there is a knower, there is an object which is known, here the tree, and there is knowledge, perception of tree. This is knowledge. A tree produces an image of itself, an impression of itself. Now, someone among you might ask, how do you know? How are you sure it produces an impression in my mind? On the indriyas. How are you sure? I'll give you an instance. If I've seen a tree, here for example, and if I've seen it properly, if I pass by it tomorrow again, I'm able to recognize it as the same very tree which I saw yesterday. How? How I'm able to recognize? Tell me whether we are able to recognize objects or not. Whether men and women are able to recognize recognize each other or not. I met Anandji once. I recognized him the other day. Whether I forgot his name is a different matter, but I recognized him as the man who met me yesterday and who tried to help me. Just a moment, beta. Just a moment. I know you all agree with these propositions. These propositions are made by Sāṅkhya, Yoga, and Vedanta follows them in Vedanta Paribhasha. Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta means Advaita Vedanta, Shankara's Vedanta. It follows them. Says, now it creates an image. This vritti, this indriya, this production of this buddhi, when it perceives through the sense organs a particular object, buddhi gets modified. Modified means buddhi acquires a mode, a vritti. Vritti normally means vyapara. Vritti normally means vyapara. Here it means a mode, a modality. And modality is a particular impression of the object which we have seen. Okay? That impression of the tree, which is imprinted into my mind when I see it for the first time, that imprint of my mind is called buddhi vritti or indriya vritti. Right? It comes through the indriyas and is imprinted on the buddhi vritti. What is in yoga called chitta vritti. Yoga is chitta vritti nirodha. Right? Chitta vritti. These are modifications of chitta, or broadly speaking, antakarana, or speaking conservatively of buddhi. They are primarily of the buddhi, but are attributed broadly to the whole of antakaran. That is mana, buddhi and ahankara. Because I recognize each vritti as my vritti. Vritti is, simply put, vritti is a mental state. It is the state of the mind. ये एक मन की अवस्था है. Like if I feel happy, is a state of mind. I'm in a state of happiness. मैं प्रसन्नता की स्थिति में हूँ. स्थिति, state. So I have the vritti, my mental vritti is one of happiness. But what is the meaning of modified? Modality. Just consider this. Suppose at the moment I'm teaching or doing this. And suppose after doing this, I develop headache. I may get tired, I may get tired. Headache. Or not to refer to headache for the moment, let me refer to an external object. After doing this, I may want to see somebody with whom I can share some light moment, right? I want to be light from the heaviness caused by the doing of this text, doing this text. So I'm in a different state of mind at that time from the state of mind in which I am at the time of doing this text and trying to explain it to my students who know something about it but not much, and presume wrongly or rightly that I know more than them. No, I know more than them. Anyway, so I'm in a different state at this moment. And I will be different state at the moment when I leave the text and go to have some rest, go have some break, and in a light moment talk to a friend. Very general things. Talk to him about a film, for example, about a drama which we saw yesterday. These different states of mind are called vrittis. Vrittis of buddhi. Vrittis of buddhi. If they are adhyavasayatmak, if they are of the nature of certitude. Am I explaining too much? Do you think I am explaining too much? Okay. Because these things are often forgotten and Nyaya does not accept them. So I have to do them. Nyaya Vaisheshika doesn't accept it. Mimamsa doesn't accept it. So I have to do it and emphasize it. So these mental states, vritti is simply put a mental state. Now as you will all agree with me, not with me actually, I am not the progenitor of this teaching, but rather the Sāṅkhya, the great Sāṅkhya thought, the progenitor of this teaching. This teaching is that we are always in some mental state or the other. Is it not true? We are in one state or the other. Sometimes we are not self-conscious. We are conscious but not self-conscious. But if somebody queries, if somebody tickles us, oh, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Nothing in particular. I'll say nothing in particular. At the same time, I am thinking of some particular thing. But nothing in particular means nothing of much importance. Right? What I mean is nothing of much importance. Though I am always thinking of some particular thing or another. Thinking means I am aware of. I'm aware of some particular. I'm aware of what Ramesh Sharma taught us today about the problem of perception. I'm thinking about it. And if somebody, friend asks me, what is that? Nothing in particular. Because I think that the friend means to ask whether any important political event has happened and whether I'm aware of that. So I say I'm thinking of nothing in particular. So what I mean to say is that when organs come into contact with objects, there is formed in the buddhi, which is adhyavasayatmak, a vritti, buddhi vritti, which arises from buddhi, but on the occasion of the sense organs' contact with respective objects. And sense organs, when they get an impression of those objects, they pass it on via manas and ahankara to buddhi. To buddhi. It is a long process, as I said yesterday. Yes, there is a process, and there are stages. But it all happens so quickly that we are sometimes wonderstruck when we are told by someone like this gentleman or the author of the Yuktidipika that there is indeed a process. Like, for example, scientists say brain functions so quickly. Somebody touches me here and signals come from somewhere and I feel somebody had touched me here. If somebody slaps me, even the child knows he slapped me on the back and not on the arm. Why? How does he know? How does a child who can't utter a word, or even if he can utter a word, he knows that somebody slapped him, a 3-year child, somebody slapped him on my cheek, on my forehead, on my back, so forth. How does he know? Has he taken a photograph of himself at that time? Has he taken a picture of himself? Picture of that man slapping him, right? His mother slapping him. So, but he knows. He has slapped me on the arm, on this finger and not on this finger. I feel hurt here. Mama, I feel hurt here. He put a stick on it. He beat me with a stick, slightly, politely, slightly, softly. He put a stick on it, and I feel hurt. Here. Upar, here. It's perception. Isn't it perception? Tactile perception. The stick touching my skin, my tvacha, and I get an impression whether it was a hard hurt or a soft hurt, whether it was too much painful or somewhat painful. I know that too. If it's too much painful, the child cries. And if it's an adult, he reacts agitatingly. Don't hurt me like that. Don't beat me like that again. So what in nutshell, when we perceive objects, we get an impression of them. And that impression is called, the state of that impression is called buddhi vritti, because it is buddhi which knowing the object through the senses, takes a decision about them, comes to know them. It is actually the buddhi which knows them, but indriyas become the channels. To that aspect will come later, and there are again a few things that significant things that Yuktidipika has to tell us. Let's move forward. Upatta Vishayanam Indriyanam. The Indriyas which have come into contact with Vishayas. Upatta I explained yesterday. Vritti Upanipati. vritti upanipati. That vritti that is formed, vritti upanipati, satvodrekat arajas tamaskam tat prakasha rupam, yat prakasha rupam. That there is illumination. There is illumination in the buddhi. Prakasha rupam. Illumination in the buddhi. Illumination of what? Illumination of an object. Revelation, prakash. Revelation means apprehension, knowledge. In Indian philosophy, often the word prakash is used for knowledge of objects. Indriyani vishay prapta prakashakarini, as Tarka Bhasha says. Indriyas tend towards the object and they reveal their existence and character. First they reveal that they exist, and second they reveal that they have this character. They are green or red or blue. They are small or big, so on and so forth. All these are characteristics. Satvodrekat. Now this is a condition. This is a psychological condition. What happens is, so the psychological and the epistemic are being combined here. Epistemic, jnana ansha, and the process ansha, that is in terms of sattva, rajas, tamas, etc., is combined. What happens is, because after all, we are all constituted of sattva, rajas, tamas. These are the elements which all will remain there. I'm using elements in a loose sense, right? There always says there is prakasha, there is illumination. And prakash can only happen when we are in a sattvic state of mind. When we are in a sattvic state of mind. What does that mean? I'll explain again and take a moment. Suppose you perceive the same tree tomorrow again. But if you are in slumber, you are tired and you are sleepy. You are sleepy. Sleepy means tamas has taken over you. So it has overwhelmed you. You are sleepy, drowsiness. You are not able to apprehend that. You may recognize the tree, but you are not able to apprehend that fully as you did yesterday. You are not able to read the same book which you were reading an hour before, when you are overpowered by sleep. Words appear and vanish, and your eyes are feeling heavy and heavy. There is no illumination. There is no illumination. Words are not revealing their meaning to you, which they were doing an hour before in the night. Heavy, tamas, sattvam lagu prakashakam, ishtam upastambakam chalam charara, guru varnakam eva chatama, pradeepavat charthato vritti. Guru varnam eva. Guru, heaviness. Tamas, heaviness. If I am heavy, as I am, physically, that means that my body suffers from tamas more than sattva. Has predominance of tattva, of tamas. It's clear. But sattva is also there, because there is illumination. There is existence. Sattva comes from satta. There is existence. So sattva is always there. In all the objects of the world, there is sattva, rajas and tamas. Even in the Himalayas, as I was explaining to you yesterday, there is sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva is there, they can be known. They exist and they can be known. Rajas is there because some movement may be taking place within them or can take place from outside if I strike them, with something heavy. So a movement takes place. Some stones may fall. They may break. And tamas, that they can be known only up to some limit. They can be moved only up to some limit. Samudra suffers from tamas, though there is movement. A sea suffers from tamas because there is a thwarting of the movement. There is an obstruction to their movement. I don't know from where, but they have tamas. Because if samudras were to me, they would only be pralay always. If there was no limit to the movement of the water, to the movement of the water of the seas, there would always be water. They would only be water. Hence it is that we are finite. We can know things because we have sattva. We can do things because we have rajas. But we can't do everything because there is tamas to obstruct them. We can't do everything because there is tamas to obstruct that. Do you follow?
Yes.
Right. So, he says, Sattvodrekat, Udreka, Sattva dominates. Or Rajas Tamaskam. When they are, Rajas and Tamas have a less dominant role to play. There is more illumination, more sattva than there is rajas and than there is tamas. Of course, sattva is required. When indriyas get into touch with the objects, there is movement in the indriyas. Without rajas, they can't come into contact with the object. There is movement. But when there is illumination arising of that movement, that touch, that illumination of the buddhi is called drashta or pratyaksha. Illumination because something has come to be known, and knowledge is important. Without knowledge, this word can't proceed. Tell me if it can proceed. I'll feel hungry. Instinctively, I'll feel hungry. So I have to eat something. What do I eat? Can I eat myself? I can eat the other person's flesh, or the other body. A lion, or a goat, for example. But can I eat myself? Can I satisfy my hunger, my appetite by eating myself? So I have to know what can satisfy my hunger. And I experiment. And then I come to know, oh, this is what satisfies my hunger more, and also gives me more happiness when I eat it than something else. Taste-wise, rasgulla gives me more happiness than, for example, a samosa. All perception. I have a taste of rasgulla and a picture is found. Rasgulla is white. Oh, if it is kept in ice, then it tastes more pleasantly if it's cold. I take a cold rasgulla. Rasgulla you might all have eaten at some point or the other, or any sweet you like. I can take the example of that sweet. Give the example of that sweet. Rasgulla is white, is cold, is somewhat round, and is soft. Unlike samosa. Unlike samosa, it is soft and it tastes sweet. And a peculiar kind of sweet, which is different from the sweetness of jalebi, which also I take. So it depends upon me whether I like a rasgulla or jalebi. And I sometimes go in for rasgulla. Today I'll prefer rasgulla. Because the eating of rasgulla for the first time has created in my mind an impression of what a rasgulla tastes like or what a rasgulla looks like. It happens with a child. Why do children look for chocolate and a special kind of chocolate according to their taste? They have tasted it. They recognize it from its outward form. Oh, it's the same chocolate. Papa, I love it. I'll take this one. And then nobody can prevent him from thinking otherwise. He wants that very chocolate. It's perception. Because an impression is created. An impression of form of the object and an impression of the taste of the object. Because taste is also a form. Don't say taste is not a form. Taste is also a form. There's an impression in me of taste of everything I eat. Of a dosa or vada or idli. If I need idli, I need idli. Dosa would not do. The dosa is capable of, satisfying my hunger equally. But at the moment I want idli. It gives a certain taste, particular taste. Vishishta, visishtascha, particular taste. Taste, of course, but a particular taste. Taste is avishishta, but a particular taste is visishta. Sabda sparsa rupa rasagandha. Sabda talamatra rupa rasagandha. So I move forward. Am I clear about this?
Yes.
Okay. I again do it and translate it. Upatta vishayanam indriyanam vrittupanipati. When the indriyas get into touch with their respective object, then a buddhi becomes vishayakara akarita. Let me explain this word and close this aspect of the definition here. It's end this aspect of the definition here. Because sometimes this expression is used in Advaita also. Let me explain. In fact, before I left for Kochi, I had thought, I didn't know that I will have to do the text itself. I didn't know about that. I had no intimation. But I had thought that if I'm asked to speak on a few things, then I will choose this Vishayakara Vritti also as one of the themes which I will touch upon. Now this is Akarit. Akarit. Buddhi Vritti. I'm just explaining this. It contains all that I have already said. Is an expression often used in Sankhya Yoga and Advaita Vedanta. Buddhi Vritti, as I says, Buddhi has a state, Buddhi Vritti, a mode. If I'm happy, Buddhi is in a state of happiness. This is a particular mode of buddhi. Mode or modality is called vritti. Vritti. Buddhi vritti. I'm happy, it's a buddhi, particular buddhi vritti. Vritti of what? Vritti of happiness. I'm sad, it's a vritti of sadness. But with regard to external objects, though it applies to internal objects also, right? I'll put them like this. As I said, as I told you, when we see a tree, Vishay, tree is a Vishay. Akar, its form. But Which of its form? The whole form? Yes, whatever appears to us, apparent, very fine. It is the apparent structure. If I have not seen, any yellow leaf on that tree, then yellow leaf will not form part of the impression which the perception of tree has created in my mind. Then I would not say that there was some yellow leaf in that, if I have not seen yellow leaf, though the tree in fact may have some yellow leaves, but I haven't seen them, so they do not form, they are not included in the impression which are formed in my mind after perceiving the tree. So it is the perceived aspect, the apparent aspect, the apparent dimensions, right? Vishaya akar, उससे विशिष्ट आकार, a special kind of akar. Akar is of course special, but that akar which I have seen, just as we say, oh, that man, for example, about human beings. Somebody has an impression about a man, oh, he's a very magnanimous man, he's a very generous man. Somebody else has an impression about me. No, he can be miserly. Because he has known that aspect and he has known that aspect. And it's more easily can be understood with respect to external objects, because they can appear. Miserliness or somebody's generosity are a matter of interpretation. Here there is no interpretation. I am not interpreting a tree. I am not saying, oh, I think tree is green. No, I say tree is green. So, Vishay Akar Akarita. It is modified. It's modified. Akarita. It is shaped. Akar is shape. Akar is shape, form. And the buddhi gets accordingly shaped. Buddhi gets shaped. How can buddhi get shaped? Yes, buddhi gets shaped. That is why we say, for example, to use the words of a philosopher who is very unique among Western philosophers, to refer to this aspect of perception, he gives it the name of structure of perception. And that philosopher is, let me introduce that philosopher here in a certain context, and on whom I have completed a work recently, J.M.E. McTaggart. And my book is Substance, Self, and Immortality. This is the name of my title, the title of my book, which I have written on this process. This just happens by coincidence. And the same thing I have done when dealing with McTaggart's treatment of structure of perception. I have brought into the context Sankhya Yoga and Vedanta doctrines. I have compared one with the other in a brief way. This is Sankhya, Vedanta or Yoga doctrine of structure of perception. Like Vishayas have a structure, our perception is structured accordingly. If I have seen this fan and suppose it's blue, now blueness is a part of a structure. is a part of its form, isn't it? I can recognize it and I will say, yes. If somebody asks me, did you see the fan in your room? Yes. What is the shade? I say it is blue or it's white. How do I say? If its whiteness is not imprinted into my mind. And that impression is of the perceived object. But that impression is also structured. Structured. I say the fan is upward. And the stand on which is standing is below it. On which is standing is below it. That the table on which I study is made of wood or steel. If I happen to notice it, yes, I know it's made of steel. Is it black or brown? It's brown. I've seen it. So where comes this memory of brownness of the table? If my perception is not structured, then memory can't be structured. And so on. Am I able to clarify these things to you or not? The structure of perception is a very, very important element in the doctrine of perception given to us by Sāṅkhya Yoga and Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta simply takes over from the Sāṅkhya Yoga doctrine. That is why the word Chitta Vritti is there. And why Chitta Vritti Nirodha is called? Let all the perceptions and images and memories go, vanishing of all of them, because memory torments. Memory torments. Memory troubles. Memory of what? Of what I had or what I lost. What I had but don't have now. And I was attached to that. It may be an object, it may be a man, it may be a woman, it may be a car. I had it, a beautiful car, now I lost it. A child, if he loses something, cries. Cries. No, that particular car I need. No substitutes. I need that very woman, no substitutes. If I'm in love, if I'm attached. Right? My wife was gone, I was in grief. I needed her only. No substitute will do. Just like that. Yes, please. Oh, yes, I forgot. Okay. But just a moment, I'll complete. Upatta Vishayanam, Indriyanam, Vrityupnipati, Satvodreka. Then at that moment, when we are awake and fresh, we must be fresh when we perceive an object, mentally fresh. Then we can perceive an object. And when we are mentally fresh, or we say we are mentally fresh, then there is Satvodreka generally. When we are able to understand some book, there is Satvodreka. Right? To so many things, this Satvodreka or Rajasa, or Rajasa Udreka or Tamasa Udrek applies. Right? And Tadrishtam Pratyaksham Ityartha Etat Pramanam, and this is a means of knowledge.